So now we're in the new recording channel that Danny created.
It's titled The New Recording Studio, parentheses, Mark Field.
Well, I didn't know that Discord would delete the channel that you were using while you were using it. That seems silly.
It's very funny.
But anyway, here we are. We're back again. And Danny, I'm excited about today.
I'm extremely excited.
I'm not excited about today.
I
But
think
I
this
hope
will be
that dynamic
the
creates
greatest
interest.
thing ever. I think this will be the best thing we
Yeah.
ever do. That's right.
Do you have
This
any-
week, we're going to say...
I would just want to know if you had any life updates besides.
I was
what
going to
we're
say,
about
this
to
week
be
we're going
doing.
to Disney World and then move on.
Oh yeah, we do have an issue that we don't really introduce anything until halfway through. But oh well.
Hey, but you know what we do introduce? The
Yes.
podcast and this new canned intro we have.
Oh yeah. Well, I thought it would be nice to have something canned. Welcome to Looking for the Ocean, where we watch everything Pixar ever. That means that means in movies, tech demos, and more. I'm Mark Young. With me is Danny Vincent.
And let me tell you, we're at Disney World. Do I have live updates? I saw, I don't want to butcher the name, but I'm pretty sure it's Pathan, having watched the entire film. It's a new Indian film out, starring Shah Rukh Khan, I think. His name is always like, people always call him SRK, because he's like the biggest movie star in India. Yeah, it's Shah Rukh Khan.
Is he a young guy?
No, he's like 50, he's in his mid-50s. He's compared to like, I saw someone, there's a guy on Twitter named Scott Mendelson who I often like bag on because I follow him because he's like he used to be the financial, like he used to be the film guy at Forbes, and he always like has bad takes, but they're kind of funny. But what I saw recently was he went viral in India in the negative sense because he wrote an article comparing Shah Rukh Khan to Tom Cruise, and everyone in India was like, nah, he's bigger than Tom Cruise, which actually seems accurate from what I've heard about him.
Yeah, I definitely recognize him, but I couldn't think of a movie that he was in.
I believe it's his first film since COVID, so that's why it's like a big deal. It's also apparently the fourth film in a cinematic universe, which I was I thought it was the second film. I knew there was another character played by Salman Khan who does show up in the middle of the film as his character from this other movie, but I assumed it was only one other movie. But it turns out this is the fourth movie in this series. But the first one with SRK's character. But I'm not here to talk about the film. I'm here to talk about the trailers I got from the film. Because I got a trailer for Mario, which is whatever. But then usually I get 2 Indian trailers when I see an Indian movie. Because the AMC by my work gets Indian and Korean films. So usually you get like all the normal AMC trailers and you get 2 trailers of like if it's a Korean movie, 2 Korean trailers. If it's an Indian movie, 2 Indian trailers. I believe, I can double check this, but I believe I got 5 Indian trailers. And I was like, whoa, I get to see like the entire like lineup of like the Indian movies coming out. That's really exciting because it's like, normally I only see the stuff I got 4. The stuff that's coming out. And one of them is a movie I'm so hyped for. It's from a director who I saw his last one and I hated it, but I think the premise of this is so brilliant that I love it. Can I tell you what it is? It's an Indian comedy. It's titled Selfie with 2 E's. And the way the trailer is set up is like there's this guy who is I think he's like a cop, but if it was an American remake, he'd be like an officer at the DMV, okay? And he is the biggest fan of this superstar, who I believe is supposed to be like a stand-in for SRK or like any Bollywood star. It doesn't really matter. He's just like a big star that everyone loves. And the one thing he wants to do, he's like a single dad, and he wants to get a selfie with the star. And the thing is, the star comes in to get his license renewed at the DMV, and he's like, can we just take a selfie for my son? And his son is like right there, and the star is like, no, you think you have power over me just because I need my driver's license from you? No way. And then it's like, the guy's like, you embarrassed me in front of my son, so now I must get revenge. And it's just like a wacky comedy of like the fan. It's like the world's biggest star versus the world's biggest fan. It's like the premise of the movie. I'm like, this looks great. This looks like 100% like, I hope it's good. Because it looks really like the type of solid bad comedy we used to get in America all the time. With like, it looked like a 2000s Adam Sandler comedy. Today it would probably be made with like Pedro Pascal as like the dad, and like I don't know. Tom Cruise wouldn't make fun of himself as like the star. Maybe RDJ as the star, if you could somehow get him hooked onto it, like a due date-esque film. But I was like, nah, this looks great. I'm very excited for Selfie.
What's this guy's previous film that you hated?
Oh, Good News. It's that's my one thing I'm iffy about. Is one thing I've noticed watching some Indian films is a lot of them have like weird, and it's because we have cultural differences. I don't want to like judge entire culture, but like there's some very weird like cultural messages in like RRR and in Pathan, which I just saw. Normally able to ignore them, but Good News. Well, Good News also wasn't funny. It's spelled, by the way, it's spelled Newwz. That's what Good News is. The plot of the movie, it's a sex comedy about artificial insemination, and at the intermission is where the plot of the movie actually starts, because this is what I was told, is like, they mixed up the sperms at the hospital. Oh no. And like, the plot is like, oh no, now our family's intertwined. I'm like, not really. That's always what I think when I see stuff like this. It's like, not really. You guys can just ignore each other. It's really awkward, and you can have a laugh about it, but like, you have no rights to that child, and no rights to that child. So let's just move on. But then it's like, it has this. They keep repeating like lines like, it's blood that makes you family. That's the whole thing. It's like, it's a very like, we can't adopt a kid. We have to like they outright say like, no, we need blood. We need to have blood relations. I can't adopt a kid. That'd be wrong. And it's like a very weird, like, I don't know what this is trying to say. And at the end they're like, yeah, we do all have to get along. But it's like, no, you shouldn't, because one of them is ruining your life. You know?
Yeah.
But
I mean, it sounds very American.
yeah, it very much is like, I'm trying to think who would be like I mean, the obvious American remake would be like Jason Bateman as one of the leads, and the other guy is like Larry the Cable Guy. Like, those would be the dads in it. You know, if it was an American comedy.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of comedies now are not super, like, not woke. Like, there might be, you know, misogyny or something like that. But most of them are about, you know, underdogs taking revenge on people in power. And I don't think that there's any, you know, big issue with that. It's not about, like, what I never saw, like, the Daddy's Home. What am I thinking of? The Mel Gibson
I haven't
thing?
seen the Daddy's Home movies either, but I've been wanting to, actually. I've heard good things.
I don't even know if I like named the right franchise that I'm
Daddy's
thinking
Home's
of.
one with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, and Mel Gibson's in the sequel.
Wow.
So that's what I thought.
It was kind of a good guess. Okay,
Yeah.
great. But I'm like, you know, what can those be about, right?
I think we're also like in an interesting spot right now of comedy, at least in America, where it's like it's gone mostly, other than like some streaming. No. Okay, hear me out. Is, you know, we have this. I think when the internet of like, I don't want to say film Twitter, but like, you know, people connecting each other over the internet over like about film. I think one of the first things that really happened in America once that became like the main force of connection, like around 2012, 2013, was like this idea of vulgar tourism, where it's like Michael Bay is actually great because you can see every movie, like all of the details in his film that make him his film. And I'm trying to think of another director who's like Michael Bay in that sense, where it's like he's bad, but he's good because he's bad. And not like at the time M. Night, because he hadn't made his comeback yet, was like that too. Now I think M. Night's great, but you know what I mean. It's like reclaiming these bad filmmakers, and I think right now. I think right now we're in this thing where it's like people are doing that for comedy stars, because since Uncut Gems came out, but even before Uncut Gems came out, people were like, Adam Sandler is actually pretty good. But it's not just been like, you know, like Uncut Gems is good and Punch Drunk Love is good. It's been like, nah, Mr. Deeds is a good movie. Bedtime Stories is a good movie. Jack and Jill is a good movie. It's like, I think I've seen the same for like Eddie Murphy movies. And I'm trying to think, I really, because I actually didn't grow up with these types of comedies, other than like Daddy Daycare or Bedtime Stories, because those were like the kid Adam Sandler movies and Eddie Murphy movies. But like, now we're in this state where it's like, we don't have comedy stars anymore. So it's like, Hoobie Halloween just came out, and it's actually really funny because no one else knows how to make comedies like Adam Sandler does nowadays. And
I'll have to check out Hoobie Halloween. This is incredible news.
I liked Hoobie Halloween. It was good. That's the whole thing to me. Is like, we have this thing now where it's like, there are no real American comedies being put out by stars. Like, yeah, Jason Bateman will do a comedy once in a while, but is he a comedy star? No, he's just an actor. It's not like Adam Sandler where you watch an Adam Sandler movie, right? That's the thing. Is
you watch like a Kristen Wiig movie? Do you think she's not a star?
Does Kristen Wiig do Kristen Wiig
Or
movies?
like Melissa McCarthy?
McCarthy is probably the last one. And the thing is, though, with McCarthy is we're not at that stage where we are reclaiming her yet. You know, She doesn't have the thing about her is like she's always had the reputation where she's good as long as she's not in a Ben Falcone movie. Like it's very much like just to watch the movies her husband directed, and you're probably gonna have a good time or a decent time. But Adam Sandler has always been like, nah, his movies like Grown Ups, that's bad. But now there's like even people are like, no, Grown Ups is like a masterpiece. And I don't agree. I haven't seen these movies, so I can't really speak to this. But I think it's interesting that we live in this stage now where it's like, Hubie Halloween is a big deal, or like Hustle. You know, like the Adam Sandler Netflix movie is like a big deal now, whether it's a drama or a comedy. I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, yeah, I see what you're saying. I kind of hesitate to put like films by Adam Sandler where I think you have good films and you have bad films, and he just has a very long career, and I think some things are more well regarded than other things. And then you have Michael Bay, where actually I think his films are very consistent with some, I mean, it's
The Rock is I like The Rock.
Well, I mean, and a lot of people are like Pain and Gain is his big movie, but I don't see a lot of difference. And like some things you might see like, oh, a Transformer shouldn't be doing that or something like that, which I think is a silly thing to say. But I think they're all basically the same movie.
Have you seen Ambulance yet? I'm just curious.
I'm like halfway through.
I mean, it's worth it for the drones,
care.
but otherwise it's kind of whatever.
Yeah,
and I like the
meh.
cast, but it's hard for me not to like a cast, even in a Michael Bay movie.
But what I'm saying is, like, the thing that's, to me, my perception of it is that Michael Bay, altogether, his films are just kind of the way they are, and there's a lot of technical ability, and that's what people are praising, versus Adam Sandler, who I think people think is funny, but he's also, like, sometimes the funny works and sometimes it doesn't, and I think that's why some Adam Sandler films are more well regarded than others, because like sometimes he tries a joke and people laugh at the joke, and then that's a good movie. But it's like no one is ever like, I mean, oh, Michael Bay, your crazy crane movement was bad or something. I mean,
no, but you're right. But my point is, I feel like for Sandler, it's always been like Zohan is good, and like Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison are good, or and you have people who will go to bat for like The Waterboy or something like that. I think nowadays I see like on Twitter, it's like everyone's like, yeah, Jack and Jill's great, Hubie Halloween is great, Sandy Wexler is great, and it'll be like all these deep cuts that I'm like, I didn't even like know these existed. Or like I even see on the other hand for Eddie Murphy, I see people who are like, yeah, Norbit's actually a really great movie, you just gotta give it a chance. And it's like, what? Like, and it's something where I can't speak against it because I've never seen these movies because I was told they were bad, and I'm not really in the mood to watch like Norbit. But it's something where I'm like, is Norbit a good movie and we just didn't give it a chance because we didn't know like how to accept its type of comedy at that time? Or is Norbit bad and it's just we don't have comedy stars anymore, so we appreciate that Norbit exists?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think it's very hard to separate a comedy movie from a comedy star.
Yeah. I want to find out how much the rights cost for an American remake of Selfie even before I see it, because I think it would do really well in America too. Even though I'm sure I'm going to see the Indian one because I think it looks very fun and I hope it's not disappointing.
Are you the thing that's wrong with America? You think everything has to be a remake to appeal to American audiences?
Am I asking to remake RRR? No, I'm not.
Well, you're asking. What do you mean? You're asking him to remake this other thing?
Well, because Selfie looks like the type of thing where like it could make money.
Every country should have one.
Every country should have a Selfie. The other weird thing I noticed in these trailers, and this is just one thing I wanted to say that I thought, you watch an American comedy trailer, there's almost always like the pop culture gag that like is in the trailer. And I saw one where it's like the basic plot of it is it's another comedy, and it's like this guy discovers he's the actual heir to like this very rich guy, and he goes in to move in, and like they were switched at birth, and the actual guy's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, your DNA doesn't, in a way this sounds a lot like Good News, so I'm kind of curious if this is the same thing where it's like, hey, your blood's the only thing that matters, and this guy gets kicked out even though he's lived there with that family the whole life. But anyway, the actual heir at the scene sees a Rolls Royce, which has the logo at the front. He's like, he looks at it, he points, and he goes, is that Rajamouli's car? Because it says RR on it. And I'm like, haha, it's a pop culture joke that's for India, but I get it because I watched the most popular Indian movie that came out last year.
Ugh.
Pathan was
Oh man,
alright.
I just that that
First
awoke
half was
something
better
in
than
me.
the second. Of Pathan, I'm just saying the first half was better than the second half. It has a couple weird twists where it's like, huh, this movie is really textually interesting in a way I wasn't expecting, but also like in a way that I don't think it's ready to actually analyze. Because
Like,
it's
how do you mean?
um, this might be a spoiler, but I don't really think it is because there's about an hour left in the movie when this is revealed because it's an Indian movie, so it's really long. But it is revealed in the second half. Is like the bad guy is his plot is revealed to be that he's making a like variant of smallpox to unleash and weaponize. But what I noticed more was like, No Time to Die has a virus plot too, but it was shot pre-COVID. And this, they actually say in the dialogues, like, yes, this virus is way worse than COVID. COVID would kill you in a week. This could kill you in a couple hours. And it's like, huh. I think this is the first, like, spy virus movie I've... Because that's, like, a common, spy trope where it's like, we gotta stop the super virus from getting out. But this is the first one I've seen where it's like, hey, it's actually, like, post-pandemic and, like, COVID happened in this universe. And I think that's really interesting that the movie, like, goes out of its way to be like, yeah, this is definitely worse than that thing that actually devastated us a while back. And then it just keeps going, the movie just goes on. It's like, we're not worried about triggering the audience of, like, bad COVID memories. We want to acknowledge that it happened, and we're doing a spy plot with that. I think that's interesting. I don't think the movie actually grapples with it.
It's a long shadow in my mind that, I mean, obviously, but people have said this before, but it's called COVID and it's not like called the Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu to me is like wrought iron and full of curls and things like that. And COVID is very iPhone-y and flat and everything. And I don't like that. I don't like that we're now living in this century.
I think, yeah, I don't think any of us like that COVID app. No, I get what you're saying.
Well,
I get what
no,
you're
but I
saying.
mean,
I know what you're. COVID does sound like we're gonna be talking about COVID 10 years from now. We'll talk about COVID our whole lives. Like,
yeah. Well, there's something. COVID seems like it's so connected with stupidity to me,
yeah,
and killing people. Sort of like no bad guy you have is as bad as like the fear that COVID created.
I want to say the other thing I wanted to say about the bad guy is I think it's one of those things where it's a cultural difference where the hero is like an agent of the Indian government and the bad guy is like a former agent that deflected, and it's like he doesn't believe in Mother India anymore, and it's like that's really bad. But then when he gives his reason why, it's like the most sympathetic reason ever. And until he goes like, yeah, I'm going to unleash a smallpox variant in Delhi that will kill the entire population in an hour. Before he gets to that point, I'm kind of like, no, everything he's saying is really valid because it's like his backstory is he recovered like a diplomat from Somalian pirates. But then they kidnapped him and his pregnant wife and shot his pregnant wife like in the womb to kill her and the baby at the same time because the government didn't pay the ransom. So I'm like, no, like very valid that he wants to destroy India. Like there's no and like the hero goes like he gave so much for your country, you couldn't give a little money for him, and the guy's like, we don't negotiate with terrorists. And at the end, like, yeah, they don't negotiate with terrorists, which is like the right attitude, I guess, but it's like he's completely like in his reasons to want revenge on all of you guys. I am rooting for him.
So like, why'd you see this movie?
It's been getting like good buzz. And whenever there's an Indian movie that gets good buzz, I try to see it because I have the AMC that shows the Indian movies. And I've said before, they also show Korean movies. And I think it's cool that I have that opportunity. And I was kind of in the mood for an Indian action movie because they do shoot action very different than how we do in America now. That was another thought I had while watching it. It reminded me a lot of Mission Impossible 2. And I realized that if we were in the 90s, how like people were like taking John Woo and like eventually in the early 2000s Ang Lee to do Hulk. You were taking these foreign directors and giving them action movies because they did really good action movies overseas. I had the realization that if we were still like in the 90s, but like India was where they were now, they would just be plucking him from India. Like Rajamouli would be doing the next Mission Impossible or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that was an interesting thought I had where I was like, huh, yeah. Because I was watching this and it was very MI2. But I liked it more than MI2 because I think MI2 is really not good. Because it still has Tom Cruise like trying to give a dramatic arc, and that doesn't work for the type of story like the type of action it's doing.
Do you think that's still happening? Because I feel like I see a lot of like foreign action movies and action movie clips, and then I never hear from these people again.
No, I don't think it happens anymore. I think what you have in America now is you get the Sundance filmmaker who does the Marvel movie. Why would you get a foreign filmmaker who's good in... Why would anyone in a foreign country like Rajamouli want to make a movie in America where they're not going to get a final cut?
Yeah.
When they can make a movie like RRR or even Pathaan, which is doing really well everywhere, and have your complete control of your action movie. I also had a weird thought about related to RRR after I was leaving, and I made the Mission Impossible connection. I was like, probably if John Wick goes to 5, we'll get the RRR guys in a scene like how the Raid guys are in 3. Or like they would ask. I feel like at that point Stahelski would be like, yeah, because he likes having like Donnie Yen's in the new one, So he like getting these foreign stars for random not bit parts. Donnie Yen looks like he has a big role in John Wick 4, but you know what I mean. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn it down, but I would also be like, I feel like they're going to be offered it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone... That's not related. I was thinking about Amitabh Bachchan in The Great Gatsby, but that's not really the same thing.
That is a good point, though. How he's in that.
Well, it's very superficial. I don't think it says anything about
the Bollywood
like,
actress Susan Tennant is in this movie too. She plays like the CIA, not the CIA, the Indian intelligence handler for the Pathaan.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's overlap. I don't know a whole lot about the action movie scene and how cross-pollination works and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I do think within a couple years we will be seeing some RRR influence here because it was such a big deal. I say RRR specifically because even though yes we'll be influenced by Indian movies in general, but I think RRR is obviously the push. The one that like a lot of people who might not necessarily see these types of films always went and saw or watched on Netflix rather.
Yes, and can we?
You don't want to see John Wick dance? Do not. You don't see John.
That's fine. Well, yeah. I recently watched La Strada for the first time, which was a big Fellini hole for me, and I think I just wasn't at a point in my life until recently where I would care about it, but I enjoyed it. La Strada is one of his earlier ones when he's switching from neorealism to magical realism.
No, sorry, go on. I mentioned it once on Snuff Club, was all I was going to say.
Oh, well, I mean, I recommend everyone watch it. I really enjoyed it. It was just...
I don't think I've seen any Fellini. So he's just a blind spot for me in general. I don't think I've seen any Fellini.
I think 8.5 is one of the movies that I've seen more than any other movie. But,
I feel like
yeah.
He's like someone. It's something where I feel like he's someone who I'm really bad about because he's like, I would go see him if they ever screen one of his movies. But then like the Siskel Center does like a retrospective on him where all the showtimes start at 6 on a Wednesday, so I can't go to any of them. So I'm like, I'll just wait for the next time. But it's like there's not gonna be a next time for a while because once we get an actual retrospective, they don't do another one really quickly.
Oh, those are both on HBO Max. Would you not care about watching them if they're on HBO
subtitles.
Max?
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. How long aren't they? Isn't 8.5 really long?
They're like 2.5 hours.
It's pretty long for me to watch at home, personally. Although I'm gonna try to get through Blonde before the Oscars, so maybe not. Maybe I could do a Fellini if I do Blonde, because Blonde is 3 hours long.
Nah, I mean it's it's whatever. I just really liked him, and he's someone that I watched a lot of when I was younger, but I just had never seen La Strada. And I don't know, La Strada's like very depressing and kind of ugly, so I didn't want to come to it until now. I've usually watched his prettier things, but now I was like, I care about performers who kind of suck, and they're in this terrible abusive relationship with each other and that sort of thing. So
isn't what was it? 8.5 is the one that inspired all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just feel like La Strada inspired something else that was kind of big. I can't think of it off the top of my head because I haven't seen it anyway.
I'm sure, but I can't think of it either. That's all for me. It's been 4 days.
Yeah.
Since
Do you want to know what I'm doing tomorrow?
What?
I'm going to do a crazy quadruple feature.
Whoa.
I'm going to see Some Like It Hot at the Music Box in the morning on 35 millimeter. Then I'm going to kill time at the AMC and watch Close, which is one of the Oscar-nominated foreign films that I think I'm going to hate. But it's really so that way I don't need to drive home and then drive back somewhere else. and then I'm going to Facets, which is a theater I've only been to once before. They're actually they're like a video store combined with a movie theater. I saw Passing there, which is a Netflix movie that was really poorly released by them, like kind of like Wendell and Wild. But if I remember, yeah, Passing was that was a movie I was glad I saw on the big screen because it's kind of slow cinema, and I feel like slow cinema at home is hard to watch. It's not actually slow cinema. I feel like if I label it slow cinema, someone's gonna come at me and be like, "Excuse me, have you seen Goodnight Dragon Inn or something like that?" I'll be like, "No, I haven't." And I know that's actually slow cinema. Leave me alone.
Is that a real movie?
What? You don't know Goodnight Dragon Inn?
Man, this is some slow
It's,
cinema.
I don't remember the name of the filmmaker, and you're gonna say the name of the film. I've seen another one of the filmmaker's movies, which was Days, which I really enjoyed, but I would never be able to watch at home. I saw it at the Siskel Center. But Goodnight Dragon is considered his masterpiece, and I was really mad because I saw Days after they did their 35mm festival at the Music Box, where they had Goodnight Dragon in, and once I saw Days, I was like, oh, I should have seen Goodnight Dragon Inn because that's considered to be better than Days, and I enjoyed Days a lot.
This looks fantastic.
Do you not know this filmmaker at all?
Tsai Ming Liang and a lot of Taiwanese guys are a blind spot for me. Growing up, it was all like European heads, and then my big thing is like a ton of Japanese films from the 20th century. Not like watching whole filmographies and things like that. Are there
areas of East Asia like blind for you besides Japan? Like, have you seen Korean filmmakers? Have you seen, besides of course like Bong? I know everyone's seen Bong and Park.
Well, I'm caught up kind of on Korean filmmakers and
Hong Kong,
things like that.
Wong Kar-wai,
Hong Kong is okay. I mean, my big things that I'm really unaware of are like mid-century English films and African cinema. And that's, me also saying African cinema is absurd, but I mean mostly like Ousmane Sembene and people like that.
But
I've seen like one or two things from most other places if you want to think about these things.
Well, you should watch. Well, I haven't seen Goodnight Dragon Inn, but Days I really enjoyed. But that's a movie you have to really like be willing to sit at, because I think it. And I talked to people who like are big like fans of this director, because Days is the only one I've watched because I saw it in the theater. And I think I could never watch movies at home because his movies are kind of like designed to like put you in a meditative state and then shock you back into it briefly and then put you back in that meditative state. So I was like watching Days and I was like, I think I enjoyed it, but I wasn't really paying attention to the movie for a lot of it. And my friends were like, no, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. Like when you watch this guy's movies, you're supposed to like think about your life and how it relates to what you're seeing. So I'm like, okay, good, then that's fine. But my point is, like, it's not something where, like, watch it in front of your TV and have your phone out, Don't do that because then you're not really doing what you're supposed to be doing. But what I was going to say is at Facets, I'm going to see... Well, I was originally just going to see Bound because they're showing Bound as their Valentine's Day programming, which I've never seen. But I noticed that it's only $3 more to also make it a double feature with Ginger Snaps, which I asked a few friends who've seen it, and they're like, "You should see it."
Ginger Snaps is great.
Okay, well, good, because I'm more going out there for Bound, because it's
Bound is a completionist movie. I think Ginger
I know
Snaps
plenty of people
really
who disagree with you. I know plenty of people who say Bound is a top 3 Wachowski. So I will still see Bound very excitedly, and I will also see Ginger Snaps because it's only $3 more, and you seem excited about Ginger Snaps too. But you weren't the only. Like I talked to a couple other people earlier today, and they're like, "Yeah, you should see Ginger Snaps." Even people who hadn't seen it were like, "No, yeah, you should probably see it if it's an opportunity. Just see it for $3 more. Why not?"
Well, I like Ginger Snaps in the same way that I like Twilight. It's all about the aesthetic. And my thing with Bound is that like I think Bound is fine. I just like I'm much more a fan of their headier stuff, and I think that like whenever they like lean into the genre-y thing and they're just kind of like the Wachowskis are like, we're just doing a genre. I'm kind of like, oh, well.
Will this do it? Will this end my Wachowski journey? I'm checking right now. Will I be a completionist once I watch this? I think I might be, actually, which is kind of crazy to think. Other than Sense8, of course. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I will be a Wachowski completionist once I watch this. I didn't realize that for some reason. Besides, of course, Sense8, which
Let me
someday
know,
I should
'cause
watch.
it's been forever, and I haven't like reevaluated my thoughts on Bound.
That's like actually insane to me to be like, oh shit, I can put up a Wachowski list after I see Bound and be like, here are my rankings. Take a guess
Watch
what's at the bottom.
Sense8.
Well, you can't put a Sense8 on. I mean, I guess you could put the finale movie on Letterboxd in your list, but
Oh.
that's my point. Is I would put up a list. It's not like I'm gonna put Sense8 on my list on Letterboxd.
Oh well.
But yeah.
Speaking
Anyway,
of
so I'm gonna do
Letterboxd-
4 movies
Oh,
tomorrow.
never mind.
I'm just saying I'm gonna
Oh.
do 4 movies tomorrow. It's gonna be a long time.
So wait, you're doing Some Like It Hot, Close, Bound, Ginger Snaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of Letterboxd, should we do the Letterboxd game?
Yes. What is the Letterboxd game, you might ask, if you somehow are clicking the Finding Nemo the musical episode as your first episode? Well, let me tell you, the Letterboxd game is where Mark tries to guess movies based on films that Letterboxd says we might also enjoy. So if Letterboxd recommends Big Hero 6 and Megamind in the recommended tab, the film you might be trying to guess could be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I start by giving you the first 5 recommended titles. After every wrong guess of the original movies, you either get more titles or another hint. I leave titles out of the recommended list if they're the same director of the original film or are in the same franchise. So for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I would not say The Amazing Spider-Man because it's a Spider-Man movie, nor would I say Rise of the Guardians because it's directed by Peter Ramsey, who also directed Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So, as always, I have 10 films that I organized by popularity. Mark will get the top 3 most popular of these 10. So are you ready for your most popular one of these?
Yes. Wahoo!
Your 5 films are Boogeyman, Lights Out, The Babadook, Hereditary, It 2017.
It Follows.
It is not It Follows. Let's see where It Follows. If It Follows is in the top 25. It is not. Oh, wait, no, it is. It is. Sorry, it is. It is in the top 25. Good. I was like, how is this not? Yeah, it's in the top 25. Give me another guess before I give you a hint.
Is it Skinamarink?
Yes, it is Skinamarink.
All right.
Great film.
Yeah, great film.
Just want to do round 2 then?
Yeah.
All right, round 2. This might be a really quick game today, I feel like. I think all 3 of these are kind of easy. Round 2 is... I say that to jinx you, so that way this becomes
We will
hard.
see.
Your 5 films are Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, Aquaman, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
The Mummy 2.
What's the title of The Mummy 2?
I don't know.
It's The Mummy Returns, yeah.
Oh my
It is Mummy
gosh.
2. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, great.
All right, you ready for the final round? I told you this one's going to be quick.
Yeah, all right.
All right, your final round goes The Hate You Give, Do the Right Thing, Black Klansman, American History X, American Son.
Emancipation.
It is not Emancipation. Emancipation is not in the top 25.
Till.
It is not Till. Till is not in the top 25. So now you get the year. The year is 2004.
That shouldn't be my guess.
Oh, wait,
but-
wait. Let me correct something. This movie played at festivals in 2004, was released in 2005. So Letterboxd has it listed as 04, but it is an 05 movie by anyone's standards.
Can I make a guess that I might cut out of the final cut? Is it Training Day?
Why are you going to cut that out of the final cut? You're just going to bleep your guest out? Is that your plan?
No, because I don't think it's Training Day, but Training Day is also like a bad guess because it's a Denzel Washington action movie, and I know this is like Black American cinema prestige picture.
Training Day is not in the top 25. So next you get 5 additional films. And then I'll do the recap as I always do. 5 additional films are
It's a
Fruitvale
great film
Station.
because it has Denzel Washington in it.
Training Day, I haven't seen it. But your 5 additional films
it's
are
fun.
Fruitvale Station, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, The Help, Lakeview Terrace, which is a movie I've never heard of, but then I clicked it, saw the director, and figured you heard of this movie. Do you know who directed it?
No.
It's a director we all hate at film school. Not film school, theater school.
What?
Can I just tell you, or are you Googling it?
Yeah, I'm just Googling it. Or you can tell me, whatever.
It's Neil LaBute.
Oh, Lamau.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Anyway.
feel like isn't he like a terrible person?
Yeah. And then the final one is Queen and Slim. So your 10 total films were, and this is a film from 2004 that was released in the US in 2005. The Hate U Give, Do the Right Thing, Black Klansman, American History X, American Son, Fruitvale Station, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, The Help, Lakeview Terrace, Queen and Slim.
Man, oh man. The Help?
I say The Help? I said The Help. The Help was something I said.
Oh, you said The Help. Oh.
Yeah, The Help is one of the 10 films. You can't guess it. You're not allowed
to. Doubt?
This is not an obscure film. It
I'm
really
sure
isn't.
it's not. I just can't think of what happened in 2004.
Or 05, really, for America.
Did you watch, like, Steve McQueen's short film, Bear?
No, I didn't. And Bear's not in the top 25. So next you get the actor, build the numbers you hit in the top 25. You haven't hit anything, so you'll get the first billed actor in this film. First billed actor is Sandra Bullock.
Oh, is it The Blind Side?
It is not The Blind Side. The Blind Side is not in the top 25. You're so confident. No.
Well, you're kind of threw me for a loop there. Now what could this be?
Well, I'll give you the director next, but I do want to give one little hint, maybe beforehand, that might get you there. Is I'd say the one of all 10 of these that would help you the most is 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
That
it doesn't help you. Do you want the director? Because you have got to the director. So this is your final guess once I give you the director, and the director is Paul Haggis.
Who is that?
He is very prolific.
Let me.
No. If you Google him, you're gonna know who it is.
Well,
This is his most known film. You have to formally give up if you want to.
I formally give up. All right.
Well, you're gonna feel dumb because the movie is Crash, which we talked about in our Brendan Fraser episode.
Are you? What? How am I supposed to know a damn thing about Crash?
You know it's a movie that won Best Picture, was about racism, and did it very poorly, which is why I pointed you to 3 Billboards.
Jesus Christ.
It is out of these 10 movies, it is the 3rd most popular on Letterboxd.
Oh, yeah. He's so, like, I would have... I of course know him as writing $1 Million Baby and writing Casino Royale. Like, quite a stamp he puts on his films. I shouldn't be so dismissive. He's probably fine.
No, he isn't. No. Be dismissive. He is, I believe, currently under some form of investigation. Feel free to be dismissive. He is not a good person. I believe he's been... Let me check this just so I have it for the record, so I don't slander someone. He's been arrested for sexual misconduct.
Oh.
Yeah. He's been arrested for rape. And ordered to pay $7.5 million and then an additional $2.5 million in punitive damages. So don't feel bad about shitting on him.
Yeah, I don't even remember the name of that guy that like directed The New Birth of a Nation and then
Nate Parker. I remember that.
I mean, I just can't remember. Like, if I was struggling to think, like, is there like someone I know that made like one stinker and then vanished? And I don't know. Maybe that's just something I don't have in my brain. Paul Haggis. How was Crash?
I told you when we did our Fraser Fun, it was the worst thing I watched.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't think we really got into it, but
it's terrible. I mean, I'm very proud of my review on Letterboxd because let me find it. Because first thing is when I first got a Letterboxd, I put up all my reviews from high school, which infamously included my Avatar 1 review, which is just 3 out of 5, and it's just Avatar's overrated. Like that's the entire review. And obviously I've gone back on that because I think Avatar is great. But my Crash review, I'll read my original Crash review, and I'll read my one I did for the Fraser Fund. My original one is 3 out of 5. And it goes, geez, I understand why this is considered one of the worst Best Picture winners. Blatant themes makes for a boring movie. The last hour is good though, but not worth the long slog to get to it. Now that's a dumb review for multiple reasons. One of which is this movie is under 2 hours long, so I'm saying over half the movie is good. So, moreover, what?
What's your new review?
It's a half star, and it goes, Issuing correction for a previous review of mine regarding the motion picture Crash 2004, you do not, under any circumstances, gotta hand it to them. It's the drill tweet. It's just the drill tweet. You know the drill tweet, right?
Yeah, I kind of want to get that book, but I don't know. I feel like since I'm a newcomer to Twitter, it's not a huge part of my identity, but I kind of want to get that book. For those who don't know what we're talking about, the Drill Tweets account published 4 books, which are a collection of their tweets, but each book is different only in the way that it organizes the tweets. So, like, they all have names too, like Drill Refined and Drill Chaotic, and it's like some of the books organize the tweets alphabetically, some by, like, I kind of want, like, the chronological one. Like, that seems like the best one. But then there's also, like, Drill Chaotic is just all of the tweets, but out of order.
You know, did I tell you what Julius got me? We don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, because it's, like, one of the weird things that really got me through the pandemic is
No,
Julius got me for my birthday last year the hardcover of Mr. Boop, which I'm sure I sent you multiple times during the pandemic because I thought Mr. Boop was great.
I'm sure you did, but that's slipping my brain right now.
Mr. Boop is a webcomic by Alec Robbins, who now, at the time, I believe, well, at the time it was a pandemic, but he worked on the Eric Andre show, and now he works at that company that made the video game that had Justin Roiland's voice in it, but he's not really involved. What?
Oh, I found it. Now I remember.
But now you remember Mr. Boop?
You should explain it to the people who are listening.
Yeah, so Mr. Boop is, if I want to be very fancy about it, a satire of fair use and parody law and how it is used. But in actuality, it is a spiraling story that is basically about... It's a parody of self-insert fan fiction where the main character is Alec Robbins, who of course is the writer of the comic, and he is married to his wife Betty Boop, and they have hot sex all the time. But then Bugs Bunny gets involved, Mickey Mouse gets involved, and it just becomes a spiraling, incredible story about copyright law. Because at the end of the first, it's got 4 parts to it. At the end of the first part, Alec is shot by Sonic the Hedgehog, if I remember right, who was hired by Bugs Bunny to kill him. And then the second one is a death dream. Second part is like a death dream he has in a reality where he was never married to Betty Boop. And then the third one is like when the copyright law actually gets involved. And the fourth one, I don't know, you should just, like, if you're into, like, I'll put it this way. You can read the first 20 strips of these, which is very quick. Because they're, like, I know 20 sounds like that's a lot. They're 3 panels each, so it's really not that much to read 20 strips. You read the first 20 strips, you're going to know immediately if it is your type of humor or not. I find it hysterical. And there was one every day during the pandemic. And it really, like, it was something where every morning I would go on Twitter, immediately, like, see the Mr. Boop. I'd be like, yes. And it would just really, it lasted the whole 2020. And it was my favorite thing to come out of 2020, honestly. I'm sorry, Sound of Metal or Soul. The best piece of media in 2020 was Mr. Boop. And Julius got me the hardcover copy of it, which I actually do really want to crack at because at some point, at certain points, the narrative became like, it's a Flash game you have to play today instead of reading a comic, or it is a YouTube video of Alec in front of a webcam, like in real life, explaining the comic in character. And it's something where it's like, I need to read this. I need to figure out how this covers the ending of it, because the ending of it really just becomes something else entirely. And it was really magical to see unfold in real time as it happened. I don't know why I brought that up.
Oh, because we're talking about drill tweets.
Oh, yeah. That was Twitter. R.I.P. We missed it. Stuff I'll remove from the Letterboxd game this week, just so you know, before we go on to talking about our topic.
I pulled up my favorite drill tweet in
All right,
case
go ahead,
people
then I can read these.
Oh, well, I didn't. I thought the moment passed, and then I kept looking at it and laughing at it. I don't even know if it travels well over audio versus reading it.
Just say it. I have a bet on what it is, but I'll see what it is.
My favorite drill tweet is the one that goes, in a world where big data threatens to commodify our lives, telling online surveys that I don't know what Pringles are constitutes heroism.
actually hadn't heard that one. That one's good.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
I was expecting it to be the candle one, which is like the most basic one. So.
No, but I mean that's what I'm saying. Like that's a good one. That's like the one, but not my favorite. Not my personal favorite.
Someone did the candle one at me the other day. And it was really good because I kept on oversleeping on my nap that week. The last of episode 3 came out, and I kept on going like, I don't have time to watch it now because it's such a long episode, and I really want to like take it in and not feel rushed while watching it. And it was like Thursday, and I still hadn't done it. This had happened every day, and someone just said, it was like 2 hours work, 2 hours driving, 18 hours of sleep. Someone needs help him budget his time. He needs to have time to watch The Last of Us. I was like, dang, that one's pretty good. The ones I'm removing from the pool will be A Man Called Otto, Ninochka, the original House Party movie, The Nun's Story, and The Air I Breathe.
How was House Party?
It was fine. I don't want to get too negative towards it, because I feel like it was one of those things where it's kind of plotless, and I feel like you had to be in the right mood for it, and I wasn't in the mood for it when I was watching it. You know, Ninochka was really good though. Highly recommend Ninochka.
Well, Danny, do you want to talk about what we're here to talk about?
Yes, we are here to talk about. I know we usually keep the groundbreaker bit for our main films, but this is
it a groundbreaker for us? I think that's what it is.
It is a groundbreaking moment for us. This is our first theatrical show we'll be covering on this podcast, which I think is worth celebrating for another reason, which is because longtime fans of my podcasts, all 10 of you, would be aware that the first time Mark ever podcast with me was when we talked about a theater bootleg.
Yeah, and I'm bringing that same wonderful knowledge to this episode where we talk about, I guess, not a theatrical bootleg, even though it kind of looks like it was filmed by one.
I think it is a bootleg. It's just a very well done bootleg because they didn't care. Because who at Disney World really cares? You know?
Really? I didn't. I mean, it kind of the one that you sent me and that you said that you watched gave me the vibe that it was like, let's get these kids and pay them each $200 to put together. It was kind of shot like a record that was supposed to be kind of entertaining, which is how we used to shoot things at SIU, because you could also, like, I don't know, it depended. There were the productions that we had to just put a camera in the back of the theater and film it just in a wide shot, but then it was also optimal really to have the wide shot for trailers, because I used to shoot commercials for our college theater program, and now we have a friend that still does, but for Broadway. But it was,
we should have him on sometime, but I don't know for what.
Yeah, I mean, we'll figure it out. What if Coco goes to Broadway or whatever?
I mean, if Coco goes to Broadway, you know, I will fly out there to see it, and we'll go see it, because we'll have to talk about all this. I actually was thinking about that earlier, because I was going to mention that, is that recently they announced at a Disney Broadway concert in the parks that Coco is in active development for a Broadway show. I don't know if they said Broadway show. I think they just said for a theatrical production, which could be a lot of different things, you know, because it could be we're putting it into the, like how Hunchback was like given a professional production in Seattle, but really was more designed for like community theater and licensing, or like how Hercules is doing that too right now, I believe. Very possible that could be for Coco, or Coco could be to Broadway. I think personally, as a big fan of Coco, but also just because Coco would be radically different than the other stuff Disney's put on Broadway, I think they should go for Broadway with it, because it's a very different style of music. But
well, but I wanted to say about sorry, you were actually doing your introduction before I went on my whole thing.
Well, this is the first theatrical production we'll be talking about in this show. It is Finding Nemo, the musical. This is a musical that began in 2006 at Disney World at the Animal Kingdom. Had previews in November 2006, officially opened January 24th, 07. And we watched some bootlegs from 2018 and I believe 2011, right? I believe, because it's 11 years ago. No, that'd be 2012. So we watched Mark watched two different bootlegs. I watched a bootleg, the older bootleg, and then I watched half of the other bootleg. And then I also listened to the soundtrack because the audio quality is not necessarily the best on these bootlegs. And because there's a professional recorded track where I actually looked up the people on the recorded track because it is the notable thing about this music, and also related to Coco, is that the music is done by the Lopez's, who famously, well, they're famous for a lot of different reasons, but they did do also, of course,
Robert Lopez, youngest EGOT winner.
It's true, in the news. I was actually talking to a kid the other day about EGOTs, because I was like, oh, Viola, they're like, did you watch the Grammys last night? And I was like, no, but I know Viola Davis got her EGOT. They're like, what's that? I was like, let me show you. And I pulled it up, and I showed them Robert Lopez specifically, because Frozen, obviously, they all know Frozen. But
it's fun that you get to be like some Saturday morning Spielberg cartoon in these kids' lives. They're like, what's an EGOT? And you're like, well, kids.
I think telling kids what an EGOT is cool.
Dun.
But I don't know if you listened to the soundtrack recording at all, but on the soundtrack, Bobby Lopez is Marlon and Dory is Kristen Anderson Lopez. Mm-hmm. And, of course, if they do a Coco musical, they will be relevant again. Well, they'll be relevant again when we cover Coco, because they did Remember Me for Coco. I hope my hot take for the Coco musical is I don't want them doing the music. Because I think if you actually look at the credits on Coco's music, they only did Remember Me, and the rest of the music was done by Jermaine Franco and Adrian Molina. And I think Remember Me is a very good song, but I think if you're to populate an entire musical with songs, I'd rather have stuff that sounds like Poco Loco and stuff like that.
You rather would have that. I feel like there is no way that is going to happen.
Come on.
If it did, that would be very cool and surprising, but I can't imagine that
the reason I don't think
Tony Award-winning writing duo would not be brought back.
Franco is Academy Award-nominated composer. You can get her involved at least. I don't think Molina will be that involved, though, because he's working on his directorial debut. But I could see Jermaine Franco being involved, especially because she'll probably be involved in the Encanto musical, too, because she did the incidental music for Encanto.
Is Encanto getting a musical?
No, but, like, my point is she's in the Disney fold. Right? So, like, I think they would just ask her. It's like how, I don't know if you saw, they're doing a La La Land musical, which is not exciting at all to me, because to me, the
appeal of La La Land was that it looked like an iPhone commercial. I don't know how you could translate that to stage.
My thing with La La Land is all the music in it, even though I like I liked La La Land in 2016. I haven't seen it since then. I should rewatch it so I can actually have, like, a current take on it. But my whole thing with that was, the reason La La Land works for me as a movie musical, because people are like, Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling can't sing. I'm like, that's true. But the songs are explicitly written with that in mind. Like, you can't put, like, a great Broadway singer on stage doing City of Stars. It's not going to magically become this, like, big song. Right? It's designed for these songs are designed for mediocre singers. It's like You're Welcome in Moana. The other songs are way more complicated, but You're Welcome is very easy for someone to sing, because The Rock is supposed to sing it. Well, all this to say is that La La Land, I think, my only interest in that show is that they have said Justin Hurwitz is involved with the new songs. If it was just Pasek and Paul doing the new songs, it'd be like, well, I absolutely have no interest then. But Hurwitz being involved is like, okay, so these will at least, like, be interesting and play with the sound of that movie already. It's not going to be something totally out there. Whereas to me, if you have all the songs in Coco, besides, of course, Un Poco Loco, Proud Corazon, and Everyone Knows Juanita, if every song that musical is written by the Lopez's, those three songs are going to stick out so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because Remember Me, it's a show tune that's in the context of the show, a show tune. But if we're doing an actual musical, I think it should sound more like the other music in it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what would make it stand out too. But anyway, Nemo, this is the Lopez's, I believe Bobby Lopez, isn't this like right after Avenue Q for him, I believe?
Right, I don't know, I'm not super big, I don't know much about Avenue Q actually.
Avenue Q is 03, this is 06. Yep, this is right after it. At the same time he was doing some music for Wonder Pets. Mm-hmm. What a career. What a beginning of a career, like very auspicious. But yeah, they did the music for this. And of course, they would go on to make music for, even though I just talked extensively about Coco, they of course wrote the music for Frozen, which is
and
more
they
than
wrote
Disney.
Agatha all along. It's so interesting hearing their work and kind of realizing that their hand was in all of this. They have that like modern Broadway sound.
Yeah. Well, they have a distinct style in the sense that I feel like since Frozen, like stuff like Mean Girls is clearly chasing their style, you know? Well, Frozen and Book of Mormon, you know? Most people are just chasing this type of style, and it's a very Broadway sound. And this is before all that, really.
Yeah.
Like, it's after Avenue Q, but Avenue Q wasn't big in the mainstream like Book of Mormon and Frozen were.
Here we are. We're in their world, and we get to look at one of their early pieces, Finding Nemo, the musical. It's, it.
I come at this episode with a very loaded backstory related to Finding Nemo, the musical. Incredibly loaded backstory to this. I feel like Mark has never seen this before in any form and had no idea it existed until like 3 weeks ago. I went and I called my mom. Well, I called my dad first. Then my mom called me with the actual answer because my dad couldn't remember. Because apparently, I texted my mom in the morning. My mom did not reply. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll call dad. And like when I was driving home from work, dad was like, oh yeah, mom got your text. She just didn't reply to you because she couldn't remember either. I was like, okay, great. I'm just going to assume this then. And then my mom immediately called me. He's like, I texted your younger brother. He says it's this. I'm like, okay, cool. I went to Disney World in 2008. That's what it was. We were looking for when I went to Disney World. And we did all the parks. I think 5 days of them. And Animal Kingdom is a 1-day park. And we did, of course, since there's not a lot to do at Animal Kingdom, we, of course, went to Finding Nemo the musical. So I have a lot of stories I can drop right now about Disney World. I do know one that I will definitely tell at some point, but I can get through the basic layout of like what this musical relates to on the way.
I didn't know you'd ever been. I never have been.
I went when I was... My mom is saying that I must have been 13 when we went, because Tim says... My younger brother Tim says he was 11. But my gut says that we went... If we went when he was 11, it must have been just after he turned 11. Because we moved... I don't even think that, though. Because 2008 is the year we moved towns. And famously on my birthday... I don't think I've told this story before on the podcast. And it actually is like one of the most early traumatic memories of mine. Is my parents decided to make the big announcement that we were finally sold our house and we're going to move on my birthday. Which, when you're a kid, that's not... Like, you know, you don't actually want to move. Like, it's this like idea of like, oh yeah, the house might sell, but that's probably not gonna happen. And then when it does, you're like, what? Like, this is all over and I have to leave all my friends? Anyway, they made this announcement on my birthday, which led me to break down crying in the Baskin Robbins. And my dad was like, I thought he'd be happy. And my mom was like, yeah, that was a bad idea. And that's why I gave Belfast 3 out of 5.
I don't know what happens in Belfast.
Well, in Belfast is a mediocre film that has one scene in it where on Christmas Day, they make a very exciting announcement that they found a place in London to go move to. And then, of course, the main character breaks down crying because he does not want to leave his home. And I was like, damn, this is like, it's home incredibly. I don't really like the rest of this, but this scene, like, feels very, like, emotionally true to both my own, like, past and also, like, how kids react to stuff like this. And I really like that it's here in this movie. And it's the only reason I gave the movie a passing grade was because it had that scene. But anyway, so I'm convinced it is... I'm convinced I went before my birthday, so I would have been 12, and my brother would have been 10, even though my brother says he's 11. Doesn't really matter. I just say I think we went here before I knew we were going to move. Very fun trip. 12, I think my older brother might have had a little less... I mean, he seemed like he had a good time. I'd have to ask him really his memories on it, because he was 14, so he probably actually has the best memories of it. But I also feel like 12 is like the perfect, like, cutoff for your first trip to Disney. I think once you're past 12 and 13, it's a little more like, yeah, there's cool stuff there, but you'd probably rather go to like Universal or Cedar Point. My story. Well, I don't know. I'll save my Disney World story for a bit. I do want to get more on Finding Nemo the musical. I have a really funny story about our trip that I will tell at some point during this.
So we don't get any trauma right now?
No, it's not trauma. This is a funny story. My trauma is... There's no trauma involved in this today, other than the thing I just said about when I was told we were going to move. So, a couple years later, after this trip, don't know if I've said this on this podcast before, but you know how a lot of people... I don't know, did you grow up with video game, like a Game Boy or a Game Boy Advance? Or did you not
I had a Game Boy Advance.
So, my history with handheld devices is my parents did not want us to have anything. Until eventually in 2006, we got a Wii and a couple DSs for ourselves. That's when we finally got video games. So I was 11 when we finally got video games. My brother was 13. My older brother was 13. And they were very much like, no, we absolutely don't want video games in the house. But I got past this because when I was in first grade, I believe, or maybe second, doesn't matter. My friend Giovanni got a Game Boy Advance, which meant that he was getting rid of his Game Boy Color. He knew I didn't have one, so he just gave it to me. And my parents can be like, you can't have that gift you got from a friend because, you know, like, it's been given to you. You can't get rid of it. And thus I played Pokemon Gold a bunch and no other game because my parents didn't let me buy any other game for it. But it was like, yeah, you can play Pokemon because your friend gave it to you.
Well, it's a good thing you got that one. That's like the longest, one of the longest Pokemon games.
Well, here's the thing: my friend gave me a completed file, but it was still really fun to me because I've always been I'm the type of person who, if I go over someone's house to play video games, I will just swing around as Spider-Man or like kill some people in Grand Theft Auto and like, you know, play in the sandbox a bit. I don't actually really care about stories in those type of games. And for Pokemon, I was like that too, where it was like he gave me a completed file of like a level 80 for Alligator. So I was like, great, like I can, you know, walk around and just encounter random Pokemon and completely kill them, you know, like it's a fun time. But my brother, I think, when he was in second grade, so I was in fourth, so I'd had this for a while. So I had like got a solid 2 years of fun out of it. My brother deleted the file, and so I was stuck at the beginning, and I was like, well, I'm not actually good at this game, and I just stopped playing it then. But even though they relented on the DVDs and stuff, they didn't really want to buy me an iPod or an iPhone. Well, an iPhone made sense because they didn't want me to have a smartphone for a while. But they didn't want to buy me an iPod because, in all fairness, I've never really been a guy who's like, this is the music I want to load onto something. Even now, my Spotify is just full of show tunes and movie scores. Because if I want to listen to the radio, I'll just turn on the radio. My Spotify is, I more listen to podcasts on anyway, but that's irrelevant. But when I was in 8th grade or 7th, I think it was 8th grade, because I don't think I was very close friends with this person. This is the person I was telling you I should have invited on. There was a friend of mine named Soli, and she got an iPod Touch or iPod Shuffle or something. I don't know, a new iPod, not an iPhone yet, but an iPod. And she
like
had her
Nano?
old. No, it wasn't a Nano because she had her Nano, and she was like, "Danny, do you want this because you don't have any?" And once again, my parents were like, "You can have it, but we're not giving you, you know, like you have an iTunes account yet." And it's like, okay, I don't even understand how to use iTunes. I don't want to spend the money to load it up anyway, because that was before I knew you could like rip music. So I had her music on there. You know, like what I mean? Like it was her music, and lucky for me, she was also a theater kid, so it was like all the music I like, a lot of Disney songs, a lot of like pop songs I listened to. Very, you know, 8th grade Indiana basic girl stuff, which is basically basic theater kid stuff in general. So it's like, okay, I still like this music, and I still jammed out to it. And she had on it the track of Just Keep Swimming, because she thought it was funny just to have Just Keep Swimming like as a song, and there was no official way to listen to that song other than the track from Finding Nemo the musical. So like I know all the words to the musical version of Just Keep Swimming because I listened to that all the time because it popped up on that shuffle constantly. So that's what I was saying, is like I should have tracked down Soli and see if she could come on for this episode.
And do you think she had seen the musical, or like
I think she might have been to Disney World and seen it, but I don't think she really like remembered it. I'm curious if she did. That's the other reason I was like, I really should have like, you know, reached out and see if she'd be down. But I also realized this on the drive home about it, you know, as I was like, oh yeah. Well, at this point, we're done. We're here. But yeah, that's my backstory. Finding Nemo the musical is I went to Disney World and then it was stuck on the iPod Nano I had in middle. I think it was 7th grade, because I think by the time high school came around, I knew how to rip music. Like once I was a freshman in high school, I learned how to rip my own music.
Yeah, so. I feel like my parents were the same way. Like I didn't have things until later on, and even then I didn't really know how anything worked. Looking back, I feel like that was more of a problem because I had like shitty peers more than like, you know, wanting to have like technology or whatever. But I mean, there are two sides of that. You know, I know a lot of people who talk about like being on forums, and that's more like a 90s thing.
I was on forums like, all the time. I was on TV.com.
Well, I just know a lot of people who like grew up with the internet, and that wasn't really me except for like Netflix. I gotta ask you, because I didn't know about this thing until this is the day after Well, it's the day that the Cars episode came up, and because I had a busy week, I was up all night fighting with Audacity to make this thing happen. So I forgot we were doing this, actually, until I woke up and saw your messages. So I got up late, and I watched the really old bootleg in, like, a blur, and then I, like, ate something because it made me so frustrated, and then I watched the new one, and then I was like, all right, this is all right. And now I'm here. I didn't know you had all these good, positive memories associated with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you go to Disney World, it's a nice positive memory. The way I'll say it is I've wanted to go back for a bit, but then it kind of became this thing where they constantly add new stuff, where, like, I don't really want to go. Although, at this point, the new stuff always looks bad. Like, right now, their new thing is Tron, and their big new expansions are going to be, like, Moana and Kanto and Coco, and I'm like, I don't think Coco as much as I like Coco, I don't think it needs something. I think it's just like have a presence in the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot, you know? Just like I guess Luca can have a presence in Italy and Turning Red can have a presence in Canada. I don't think you need to give it something big in Magic Kingdom. So I think IP should stay out of the Magic Kingdom. And probably out of Epcot too, but at least in Epcot it makes more sense to me. Anyway, I think when Avatar World came out, or World of Pandora, whatever it's called, that's when I was like, ooh, I really want to go, but they say they're going to make a Star Wars thing. So I waited for the Star Wars thing, and the Star Wars thing came out, they're like, oh, we're going to make a Marvel thing. I'm like, ooh, I should wait for that. And now we're here, where it's like, well, the Marvel thing sucked. Galaxy Edge has mixed reviews. Avatar World still looks really cool, and they're probably going to expand it more now that the movies are coming out. So maybe now's the time to finally go back, but then it's also like, I do think maybe I'll go whenever I have kids. You know, like, definitely, like, something where it's like, yeah, you want to have the kids have the memory of going to Disney World and meeting all these people.
Sure. You can come to New York and do that now.
New York?
They're on the street.
You know, I think another important thing to look at this as, and I say this before we've even actually talked about, like, the thing, is this past December, I saw the Lion King musical for the first time ever. It's something my parents have always wanted to take us to see. Like, even as kids, but it was like, you know, it's too pricey when you're a kid, really, to go there. And it's gotten to the point where, you know, like, my dad is old, my mom is old, and we're like, we've all wanted to do this, so let's just splurge and finally do it when it's here. Because we all still, like, we are, even though now my younger brother is 25, we all still like The Lion King, because we are, you know, part of a generation where everyone likes The Lion King. And we've always wanted to see this on stage, and it was great. But this to say, and I actually just looked it up right before we recorded, is I feel like this exists as, like, a preview for what Disney Broadway is, for people who can't afford it. Like, you can afford a trip to Disney World, but you're not going to necessarily go to New York to see Lion King or Beauty and the Beast or whatever, like, their one that's running at that moment in time is. Right?
Sure.
Or you're not going to necessarily buy a theater ticket if you're not into the theater. But Finding Nemo the musical, yeah, it's a hot day. I'll spend 40 minutes inside seeing the cool puppets. And it's the reason I say this is I looked it up, and the puppets, the production design is by the same person who did the production design for The Lion King, which is Michael Murray. Who
Michael
obviously
Curry.
Curry.
You said Murray.
Curry. I don't. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Michael Curry, who did the music, who did the puppets with Julie Taymor for Lion King. So I feel like this exists as like that type of preview, and I think in that regard, I think it's really cool. Because I'm not saying this movie is the reason. This musical is the reason I like theater. I obviously was already into plays when I was 13 because I did. Well, no, I didn't do it yet. If I went in 2008, this was right before I went to middle school. And I already said that I got the Finding Nemo soundtrack, like the iPod in middle school. But I think this is definitely one of those things where I was like, wow, the stage is so cool and awesome. And at work, I remember, before I saw the Lion King musical, one of the kids at work brought in a Simba toy that I was like, that's not like normal, like, you know, like it's very much like a different design than normal Simba. She's like, yeah, I got it. I saw Lion King yesterday in Chicago. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I legitimately think it's very cool to like take a first grader or second grader to the Lion King or to a play like that where it's going to completely blow their mind. And I was thinking about that during this, and it's like, you know, I think this really exists in that same realm where it's like, it's way shorter. And unlike Lion King, I don't think this works at all if you don't know what Finding Nemo is. Because Lion King is very good about like, we're not skipping over anything. We're giving you everything and we're adding stuff to it. This is very much like, wow, we were just in that whale, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was like, because this one played like 5 times every day.
Oh yeah. And that's not. I'm not saying it's it's not an issue if it's the medium. It's a theme park show. It's not a Broadway show. But no, I think looking at it from that perspective is really cool too. It's like this is like gonna get one. It's advertising what Disney Broadway does, but also it is kids are going to. It's a show that's designed to get kids into like theater and realize, oh yeah, there's puppets there, but I also can watch the people's faces as they act too. I think there's a lot of clever staging here too that like involves handing off the puppets, and stuff like that. I think it takes itself seriously when it needs to.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird talking about this because I felt like watching the two videos was like watching two entirely different shows. I don't know. I can't. It seems like, I saw Ohio State Murders and I thought the script was great and I thought the production really did a disservice to it. And with this, I feel like it's not a lot there and it's good if you get it on a good performer night. And otherwise, it's like, I don't know. I
cool,
feel
though. The puppets are so cool.
Yeah, I mean they can be. I don't know.
There's a child that bungee cords in this show. This is a spectacle.
Yeah. But I mean, even like that, it's like I don't know. You said something that really struck me, which was that Disney theme parks are kind of like a kid's thing versus Universal or Cedar Point, which is something that you might be interested in more as an adult. And I think that's true because I'm like, I enjoy a roller coaster. I would not, I'm less into the theme park aspect of theme parks. And this is just kind of the same, like, does this exist to like trick children? I don't know. I'm just like, what?
It exists so that way parents can take their kids inside for 40 minutes in a hot day. That's why it exists.
People should do drugs.
Yeah, definitely give that to the children. This is sarcasm, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I tried to like tamp this down before I came on, but I just like, if I saw the first production that I watched, I would be very annoyed. I liked the second one fine.
I thought the Marlin in the second one was so much worse than the Marlin in the first one. That's the thing to me, is like, the Dory was bad in the first one, but like, I don't think Dory does a lot in this script. Like, she has like one song and is just kind of there for the rest of it. So Marlin obviously needs to be good for it to actually work. Which is kind of like what we said about the movie too. It's like Marlin is really like Ellen's doing her Ellen thing, which is fun, but Marlin's like the reason it exists.
There are interesting moments like when they do say just keep swimming and then they're floating over the jellyfish. I thought that was interesting. It made me think about like contract law, like how close you can get to a lot of things. That was something that really interested me, is that there are no railings. Well, because there are no railings in this show, but there are a few times when people are on very high ledges. And I was like, I wonder, like, what is the code for that? Because sometimes they have some kind of barrier back there, but other times it's like they're like high up, but it's not totally clear how they're secured. I think Crush was really interesting.
I thought Crush was the best part. Crush is the best song in this.
Yeah.
What, you don't like the Crush song?
I don't know.
You don't remember any of the songs? Just go with the flow.
I mean, the flow is like... The flow is I mean, that to me sounds like, what if you gave like your like hedge fund assistant to an assistant to an assistant to a sub assistant like a song? That was what that made me think of. It was very divorced from how I think of Crush in the film, which is an actually cool guy. And that to me is what your note about the Lopez's doing the music for Coco is that like I think the Lopez's, their big Broadway successes have been shows which are kind of like riffing on a Broadway style, like Avenue Q and the Book of Mormon. And then I also think that I enjoy the Shark song because it's like...
Oh, actually, the Shark song is where I was like, all right, this might be rough to get through.
Well, I don't know, it's interesting, but I just like, if it's self-aware and kind of leaning into that old Broadway style, which is not that old or whatever, it sounds more show-tuney, I guess. That works for me. But even then, I just like, I don't know.
I thought it was nice. I think it looks good. I think the music is it's here's the thing.
I'm
Here's the thing
sorry
about
we're
Disney World.
here. I feel
No,
like you're Sarah coming in being like Monsters Inc. is my favorite, and I'm like, I didn't know this fact about you, but I have prepared thoughts.
here's the thing about I don't want to be like this is I think Disney adults who very possibly if this podcast ever blows up could everyone be checking out and be like why is he insulting us we're whatever
No,
Disney
they
adults
took a
really annoy me.
they took
They
a
annoy me.
swipe.
What?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just. To me,
But-
none of that seems appealing. So I have no
But-
good things to say about it. But I
but
also
Dis-
like. I'm
but my
just not
point
that
is-
guy.
My point is that you're saying this thing about theme parks. I think universally people, and that's not a pun, I swear, people don't really like theme parks. Even people who go to Disney World is like the exception. And I stick by that. When I've been to Disney World, it is the exception because it is incredibly like well done. Always, whenever you go there, that like they stay in character, and you get to meet you get stalked by the witch from Snow White, and she's like harasses you a little bit, and you're like, oh haha, and she's like, don't you want a picture of me? I'm beautiful, and you're like, all right, like that is the appeal of Disney World. It's like Ed DeBetics, right? It's like you go there for this. So I get what you're saying, where it's like, yeah, it doesn't appeal to me, but it's also like, yeah, I don't know. Any other one you would have tried wouldn't have been Disney World, and I don't want to be like, you have to spend money to go try this thing that exists. But it's like, I don't think it's something to dismiss, because I'm someone who also hates every other version of this other than Disney World and Disneyland. Like, I have no desire to go to Universal. I don't think I'd like it. So,
Well, I'll go to Six Flags for the rides.
my point is also is like, I don't mean to be like, and also I want to be very clear. What I'm about to say is not shitting on people who do these jobs. I think we both know several people who work at theme parks, like as actors and performers. I think this is so much cooler though than like when I go to Cedar Point and it's like, hey, like back when I used to go with my aunts would all be like, let's go to one of the shows so we can have some downtime. I'd be like, no, this sucks. It's just, when you're a kid, it's like, it's just these people singing old songs, and I don't want to be here. I just want to go out to the rides. And, like, they might be good singers, but it's like, you don't want to be there. But, like, Disney, the shows are, like, the coolest part of the park. Like, Nemo is a cool show. Like, they have another Lion King show in Animal Kingdom that's really cool. They have, the thing that sticks out to me, because it's closed now, that I want to talk about, well, not talk extensively about, is they used to have at MGM, well, now it's Hollywood Studios. It used to be called Disney MGM. They had this stunt show where it was just car stunts where they blew stuff up and drew cars around. It was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Whereas I feel like the idea of like just being like, oh yeah, well kids are gonna feel tricked going here. No, because going to the shows at Disney World is part of it. Like you go on Splash Mountain, because the thing about Splash Mountain, I know Splash Mountain's closed down. I'm just using an example. The thing about Disney parks in general is the rides are not great. What is great is like you're on a ride and oh no, the characters on the ride are getting scared along with you. Oh shoot, you're about to die, or you're on I'm trying to think of another ride that's not or like you're on the Tower of Terror and like Rod Serling is hyping you up for like how scary this is gonna be, and then you drop and you don't know how much you're gonna drop because Rod Serling hyped you up for it, like, and eventually we're gonna do a Disney Parks episode and I'll get more into all this, but it's like to be like, yeah, I think kids would just hate this is like, I know, because at this point they're in a park where they're prepped for this to be good. Like this is like a highlight of Animal Kingdom. Not anymore necessarily, but at the time it was definitely like Everest, Finding Nemo the musical, checking out the tree.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe I just can't say much because I haven't been there and I don't want to go, and so I lack that direct experience. But I did watch this.
I mean, yeah. I don't mean it's just like you're like dismissing it, like I don't know, like people like kids would be mad watching this. I'm like, no, they wouldn't. Kids would love this. I was a kid and I loved this. Like,
there was the
you'd be like, sure, maybe. Like,
I don't know if you
it's a
saw
fact.
the one shot in like, it might have been the 2018 one, and I don't know how far you got in that one, but it's like when they shoot the swordfish, or then they go out into the audience.
I didn't get that far.
Yeah. Well, they're like, you can see the audience, and they just look kind of like, And
well, that's 2018 also, when this thing has been. The thing is, when I went, it was new, right? I went in 08. This opened in 07. Like, anything when it gets older, it's like, people have been there before. I don't want to be, like, rude about it, but, like, I don't know. I don't really necessarily trust that audience.
It's not about the audience. It's about, I mean, it's like, it drives me up a fucking wall when people that I work with or whoever talk about the quality of an audience. it's, it's not the audience's job to pay their money and then also to like,
Like it.
what
Yeah.
it's like liking it is a passive thing. It's not the audience's job to pay money and then like put in work to enjoy something.
Yeah, I would agree.
So if if it looks like an actor's like moving a little slow or whatever, or they're like not holding a pause long enough or something like that, I can be very empathetic towards that. But it's also like, especially if you have material that is fine, but it's really like, it's condensed Finding Nemo. I like, you gotta like sell that. And I want to be like empathetic to people who have been doing a show forever, but I'm just like, if I'm going to this show that's been running forever, I hope it doesn't suck. And for it not to suck, you have to like make it not suck. And we both liked different videos of this short for different reasons. And it sounds like we took like opposite things away from characters and stuff like that. Is there like a fundamentally good like performance wise, conceptually, is there something there that makes us want to see these performances? I'm like,
Wow, but I think in that though, you have especially with a park show, right? Because I've seen a couple Disney stuff. I was in Beauty and the Beast. I've seen Lion King. I want to see Aladdin when it's here again because I was mad I missed it last time. I feel like I've seen Mary Poppins, and inherently, with any adaptation, you're going to compare it to the source material. But at a theme park where, the puppets are like basically the exact models of the stuff you see. Because in Lion King, they're very specific. Like, no, we're not going to make it just be a theme park show because that would be stupid. Like, these are going to be very highly stylized puppetry where it's cool and it's not going to remind you of the movie. But whereas on this, it's like, yep, these are the movie characters as puppets. Where it's more impressive, like, to me, like, that they're acting and moving, like, because the puppets seem pretty elaborate to me, like, on how they blink and how you can see them operating the puppets, too. That's what's more cool to me about the puppet opera. Like, in this show, you can really see them, like, working their stick while they're also acting. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But I think my point is, I think it's hard for these performances to engage because you're seeing the character model basically that's from the movie, but you're like, that's not Albert Brooks, that's not Ellen DeGeneres. And that's why for me I actually like Crush, because Crush is this radically different character. It's like, okay, it's not just the movie. I'm not just getting the movie right now.
Did you watch or have you seen that video of maybe it's the guy that does Marlin or has done Marlin where he's like demonstrating the puppet?
No, I haven't. I didn't see that. I just noticed around the end, like when they're handling it. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I guess they've been doing that the entire time, and I just didn't notice.
I mean, it's very interesting how they make them. There's one website that says they were made out of wood. I'm listening to a podcast right now where Michael Curry talks about his studio, and it was recorded during the pandemic, so it's kind of like about the pandemic more than it is about his just process. But that's all very cool. I mean, in the puppeteering thing is kind of like, I am not a puppet guy, so I don't want to be like dismissive about puppet knowledge, but it was kind of like basic, if you were a puppeteer, it would be like basic puppet knowledge about like, oh, well, they look at the fish versus looking at the actors, and they're like directing focus this way, and they want to move
but
like
I thought
fish.
The performances were like, I don't want to say they were great, but I thought the performance, like, I would watch Marlin's face, like the actual actor playing Marlin's face. In the one I liked. The other one I was like, I don't like this guy. But I was like, no, I feel like they were really into it while also still operating the puppets. But when you're a kid, I remember very specifically, I didn't notice the puppeteers. I mean, I did notice puppeteers when like they spotlight them, but otherwise it was like, no, I'm watching Nemo, I'm watching Marlin, which is why I like the bit at the end where they're swimming down and they just both put their puppets, hand their puppets off, and they just deliver their lines to each other. And I'm like, ooh, that's really cool. I like that. Nemo and Marlin.
That is a good moment. It's very interesting that they break like that.
And I like when this gets serious. I like that it's not afraid to get serious, even though it is missing the whale scene between Dory and Marlin. The fact that this show ends with Nemo swimming off and a long beat of Marlin just sighing, I'm very surprised that's in a theme park show. Like, if it was on, like, if this was like a Broadway show, I'd be like, okay, sure, like, that's logical to end it. But, like, as a theme park show that is designed to, like, keep kids entertained for 40 minutes and allow adults to get the AC, ending it with Marlin just having a moment to himself is like, whoa, like, great. I love that. I like that. I feel like the staging in general is like, we're gonna have obviously fun with these puppets and the set pieces we have, the few set pieces we have, but like, I don't think it ever is really talking down. The script might be, but I don't think the performances or the production is, if that makes sense.
No, it just it kind of has like, there's just some things that seem like half realized. Like, I think the diver scene doesn't really come together.
What bothers me there has nothing to do. I mean, I think you probably have a better reason of like. I assume you're talking about like the projections, not like working for you. To me, that scene is really distracting because I don't have proof of this, but it looks like they're just using a repainted Pride Rock set for like the drop off to me, and I'm just like, that really throws me off. It just looks like Pride Rock, and.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, it's interesting that you think that, because I think that it might just. I know exactly what you mean, but it might just be a convention of like having a promontory.
But in Animal Kingdom, where like the other big thing is Lion King stuff, it's just really like, okay, right? Like, at least that's my vibe. I mean, you're right too, but I do just like, if you're here in this park, your mind is already on Lion King because it's like the biggest presence in the park, IP wise. It's when I went. Now it's Avatar because Avatar is there. But I was gonna say, because I want to talk more about the show, but I do want to say my story about Disney World, because it does take place in Animal Kingdom, and I'm going to find a picture of this character to send to you in the chat, and also you can put in the episode picture. What is her name? Divine is her name. Okay, so I will first send you a picture.
What on earth is your story about Divine?
Do you know who
related
Divine
to
is?
Animal Kingdom? Yeah.
No. Divine is a character. So Disney parks, you think the only characters I'm about to send it to you. You don't need to Google it. I'm about to send it to you in the text channel.
Okay.
Disney parks, obviously they have Mickey Mouse, they have Buzz, they have all the characters that you expect to meet. But then every park has a couple ones that are like individual for park. Like, I think the Magic Kingdom has like a train conductor who will walk around and talk to you. Like, he's like, I'm getting ready for the parade. Or like, Epcot, it's more like, oh, you're in Mexico? There's a street performer here who will talk to you about his life in Mexico. And Animal Kingdom has, obviously they don't have animals walking around. They would have Disney characters walking around, but they do have Divine, who I don't know if she's still there or not, but she's basically this woman who's dressed like a vine, who will freeze for long periods of time and then start walking again. And she is really cool. And she would like kept appearing out of nowhere on our trip, but I'll send another picture for that, like, gives you a person for size, so you have some more context.
Yeah, it looks like you sent me a picture of a tree, and I was trying to.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh,
that's what cool. She looks like. Or like, here's a picture of her.
I do. I mean, face. I do like the circusness of everything, but, and I love the different acts and things like that.
So here's my story about Divine. This is the running joke about Divine that has lasted in my family since this Disney World trip. It is one of the longest running jokes in our family, and I'm very proud to say I'm the one who made it. This woman we see like on the ledge. We just think she's like a part of like it looks like she's against a lamppost. We just think it's a decorate. Like we just think it's a vine. And then she starts moving. We're like, whoa! And we watch her for a bit as she walks down, and she waves to us, and she walks away. And my dad, we're just kind of there in silence. Like, we're going wow. My parents are like looking in silence. And my dad just goes, wow, that woman is amazing. And I go, you never call mom amazing.
Lamau.
And then we're all just like, oh my God. And then the rest of it's literally like whenever like we talk about that trip now, we go like, do you remember that amazing woman? Like, that's who she is to us. It's not Divine. It's the amazing woman.
Oh man, I don't know if you've told me that before, or if that sounds like a line from some movie or something, but quite a powerful
Nah,
woman.
if you after this, you should definitely like look up on YouTube some videos of her because she is really cool to just watch move. It looks like she's still there because when I Google it, I see there's a couple of YouTube things from this year where she's still there, which is awesome. I'm glad they didn't get rid of her.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my Animal Kingdom story about Divine.
I've weirdly not just talking about street performers. I have not seen a lot of the like New York things you think you'd see. Like I saw the Underwear Cowboy, and there was a guy in Washington Square Park once who was doing one of those like station, like he's walking, but he's made of gold and frozen. But I haven't seen a lot of that.
Well, we've talked about street performers on here before. I don't usually see anything really cool here, other than, of course, I've mentioned before the jazz band that's always outside any Broadway show you see in Chicago, like Broadway and Chicago show you see. What I was gonna say also is, and I don't remember this with us, but it also might have been just that we were in a rush out. But I have to imagine there were points with this show where afterwards you got to talk to the puppet, because that's the whole appeal of Disney World too, is you get to meet these people. And I'm curious if not, that's something they really should do. Because I know that right now they've cut the show down to a 25-minute. That's what it is now, so they could fit in more shows. But to me, I'd be like, cut it down to 25 minutes, but keep it as a 40-minute slot, and then afterwards get actors who can improv as these characters and talk to the kids as Marlin and Dory. Because obviously you can't have them walking around Animal Kingdom with these puppets because they're highly elaborate and like probably really expensive. And all you need is like one person to try to like snatch the puppet out of someone's hand, and that probably like I imagine they're very easy to snatch. They're constantly taking them off their poles in this show. Although also they have
video I watched.
Were they in character, or were they just showing how the puppet worked?
They were showing how the puppet worked, but I thought it was the guy that played Marlin.
Well, that makes sense too. Like a behind the scenes bit. Because Disney's all about that too. Like, unless it's like ruining the magic, but in that case, it's a musical and they bow at the end anyway. So these aren't characters. But I was gonna say, I'm describing all of a sudden. I'm realizing I'm actually describing the other Nemo attraction, which is Turtle Taco Crush, which is just at Epcot, and you talk to Crush, and Crush is like a CGI character that is improv in a booth away from you, and like answers kids' questions about being a turtle. But Nemo is very lucrative for the Disney parks. Everyone loves Nemo. Why don't you get a Dory musical?
I thought that was what the new one was.
No, it's just I think it's just the same show. I believe it's just the same show, but cut down to 25 minutes. I just think, I gotta say though, the one thing this cuts that there's a lot of things this cuts, obviously. It's getting down to 40 minutes. I think it's kind of insane to adapt Finding Nemo, and not include any speaking whale. Like, that's one of the most iconic jokes in the movie.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You don't want to talk about this anymore? You don't want to talk about Nemo?
Well, no, I do. I don't know why my brain like short-circuited. I think it's weirder that Nemo's escape is kind of alluded to and not shown. I think the whale thing could have been like, of course I speak English. I also speak whale. La 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 la.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure why that wasn't incorporated somehow, but I kind of got it because I was thinking about that, and I think the whale is like the darkest part. Not actually the second darkest part. Well, there's a lot of dark stuff that happens in Nemo, but it's a really like sad, dark night of the soul moment that would be really weird in a 40-minute show. So I get that part of that.
I think it's also goes to that thing where I don't think this adaptation really cares about Dory, which is fine. I don't think it's actually a problem that this is more focused on the Marlin Nemo relationship. It just makes it's one of those things that to me it makes it a very different entity than the movie, which is good. Like, I think if it was just if it was just a remake of the movie, it's like whatever. And then you do have the characters that pop up, and like you get the School of Fish where they do like the posing, and it's like, oh, that's cool to see like on stage. And you get to see Mr. Ray, who's a bike, and it's fun, like stuff like that. And then you get a giant animatronic Nigel. I just thought it was good. I was gonna say, there's one joke in this I really like, which is the penguin joke.
That's a solid joke. That joke really knows its audience.
That's the joke that's for the parents.
Yeah.
like I'm getting a little bored at that point. Like, okay, good. This is a good joke. I don't know. Like, I guess I shouldn't really keep praising it because even though I like it, it's like it is still like it's a theme park show.
Well, I don't want to be like, I don't know. A lot of people like theme parks. I just every time I see footage from one or I hear about one or whatever, I'm just like, this seems like a trap.
If you had to
Yeah.
adapt a recent Pixar movie into a theme park thing, what would you do? Like show,
How
not
recent
ride.
does it have to be?
Let's go with your cutoff is Inside Out, like Inside Out or later.
Well, I don't know what you could be thinking, because all I can think of are like joke ideas. Because I'm like, you could go to Italy, or you could go to New York, or wherever, you know.
Oh, well, I mean, the obvious thing is do a Coco review, and I don't want to do that. I think that's too obvious.
Oh, I thought that
You know-
came before Inside
No,
Out.
that's not-
I thought you were
No, Coco's
purposely.
after.
Ah.
I would do like a jazz club for Soul. I think that'd be cool. What? Mark's giving me a look.
I don't know. I really wanted to look up something before we got on here, because I think this is the first kind of thing like this we've done where it's a product based on another product that isn't like Toy Story 2, which is another movie, but it's like,
Or a short film.
but how do you square like profiting off the IP with like the message of the film, you know? And I feel like there's maybe a conversation to be had about like the institutionality of jazz.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I think
well,
we're
the
going to get that whole
institutionality-
discourse when La La Land the musical comes out again, you know?
Well, and versus like progressive elements of that. To me, like part of the reason I don't want to go to parks is if I wanted to go somewhere, I don't want like a branded jazz experience. Like if they want to sponsor something, that's fine, but having like a ride that was like go to this club or something.
I get what you're saying, but you're looking at this like now, where I think, as I've said, most people who go to Disney World, like our age, who just go, I am always like, what? Why? But like, say if I had like a 6-year-old kid, and I was like, we're going to Disney World, that's very different, because the point of that is not the relationship. Like the point of that is not like me. I mean, it is me having a good time with my kid, but it's also I want to make a good time for my kid. It's not necessarily my enjoyment is secondary in taking like an 8-year-old to Disney World. Like, do I want to have a good time? Yes, but it is more important that the child I am taking has a good time. And in that regard, like, for example, I'm thinking when I went to Epcot, you're like, you don't want to do this like branded thing when you would ever do it. Sure, I agree. But when I'm 12 years old and like we're at a air quotes authentic German buffet, no, like who cares when you're 12? Like it's just like, oh cool, I'm eating this now and then I'm going to like get tacos in Mexico for dinner, you know? Like
Yeah, I mean I think that's part of it is like it's based on like
and Epcot is literally half the park is cultural appropriation, right? It's the World Showcase.
That's what I'm saying. It's all like selling some level of authenticity that, you know, why you just cannot do that and have a good time anyway, you know. It's well, I guess I already said it, but yeah, that's part of the reason I don't know, I can't think of a better current thing that would be like an interesting theme park ride too, because I also think that like,
well, I wasn't saying ride, to be clear, I was saying show, because we're gonna do another episode on the rides eventually. That's my whole point, is like,
so like a current Pixar show, because I think that any Disney thing is a cheap copy of whatever it is trying to imitate. So if
any
you make
Disney
a copy,
thing, like at all, or in a park, are we just talking about the park right now? Because
I guess I'm talking about a park.
Okay,
but
sure. Okay,
the
because
park
like,
is
excuse
always
me,
the
Julie
park.
Taymor.
The
Sorry,
park is always a representation of the representation. Like, how divorced from just like going to Mexico or wherever do we need to be?
Oh, okay. Well,
you know what I'm saying? It's
well,
like,
also
why?
the thing that's about the parks right now with the World Showcases, when I went, it was very much designed to be, no, you're visiting China now, you're visiting this. It's like, when you visited like the China part of the World Showcase when I was a kid, it was just China. And this makes me sound like back when I was a kid it was better, but like now it's like there's Mulan there, you know? Or like now when you go to Italy, there's like some Luca merch, or like you go to I believe Canada has Turning Red stuff right now, and of course Mexico has like a Coco show, I believe, like not a show, but I think there's like a kid who's like dressed as Miguel who will play his guitar, you know, like in character. It's like there is IP now there where there used to not be. And that's what made Epcot cool, is that Epcot did not have IP. It had stuff that was sponsored by businesses like Test Track, which is a ride that is like a racing track that was sponsored, I think, by NASCAR or something like that, but it never had like a lot of IP. And then now, of course, Norway is just Frozen stuff. A lot of this has to do with, like Bob Iger and Bob Chapek really valuing the idea of IP in the parks compared to the people before them who viewed the parks as a separate entity where it's like, we can have the Disney stuff there, but the whole point of these parks is that we want to create an experience like Walt did, because Epcot was originally designed to be this thing where it was like, this is the community of the future. And now you have half of Epcot, which is the World Showcase, where it was like, this is our idea of like the United Nations, but at a theme park, basically. And then there's the futuristic stuff where it's like spaceships and like, what will the future actually mean to us? I guess my point is like you're talking about this facsimile of Mexico, where a part of me, like, maybe this is me being like a Disney show, part of me wants to initially be like the World Showcase, like it's not even the Disney show, because it is cultural appropriation, but it's cultural appropriation in that 90s thing where no one's really thinking about calling it a cultural appropriation yet. Which, does that mean we need to redo World Showcase? Does that mean we need to fill it up with IP to make it more of a Disney thing so it's not bad? Or is it like, I don't think there is an answer. Because I think World Showcase does come from a like liberal, like a like nice liberal idea of like, this is going to showcase new culture to people while they're at Disney World. I don't know, it's this big conundrum where it's like you can't really tell them also destroy half the park and redo it, because that's not really possible.
Well, I'm not saying that. It's just, I don't know. Because speaking of the Wachowskis, we would all be good to read the Simulacrum book, but it's, yeah, that's my, I don't know. I thought there might have been another movie that had a better show concept attached to it.
What do you mean?
Just, I don't know. Is there not like, hey man, we're going back to medieval Scotland.
Maybe
that doesn't
like,
exist anywhere.
like,
Ride a bear.
I don't like. Do you want me to open up what the Epcot shows are? Because I can if you want me to. Because the thing
no,
is,
I don't care about that. I thought you wanted me to pick a random show, and I can't think of any.
Well, because they do have like cool. Like, I don't want to be like it's great because it's like Disney Parks does not mean me defending it really, but it's like these things do have like shows and like stuff there where it's like I'm opening up. I have just opened up Epcot, where it like has these pavilions. The thing that's cool about Epcot is that it is really more of a park that you walk around and experience. It's not really a bunch of rides there, but it is still just, it's a world. It's stuff like that. It's you visiting places in the world, or like Animal Kingdom, like Everest. Everest isn't based off of Disney IP. It's just you're on a roller coaster and a Yeti attacks you, right?
Sure.
But those are the rides. I'm not necessarily. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have an argument because I haven't been to Disney in 15 years.
It's just that Disney is like, if we were talking about the Disney brand, like we talk about the Pixar brand, the Disney brand is like a sanitized version of something else.
The world?
Yeah, I guess it's like a sanitized version of the world, and I'm trying to say something more specific, like classic narrative tropes, but those things don't actually exist, because underneath all of this are really a few people that decided this was like the way to tell stories, or the way that you should represent yourself in the world, and that is the Disney brand. It is like
it's like assimilated into this like Disney idealist world no matter what.
Yeah,
which is why Avatar feels so weird that it's in those parks.
Yeah,
and Avatar is also like an idealized narrative in several ways too.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idealization is a lot of it, and that exists too in like Radiator Springs, where you have like the ideal small town which is free of racism and even like poverty. Really, everyone's doing fine. It has no problems except people are kind of lonely. And it's like, I can't say this more than people have already said it, but if you think that these things are a problem, or if you just want to go interact with real people and have real experiences, there's a value to the presence of danger and uncertainty and navigating that Disney doesn't give you.
And I think that relates back to this well, because I do think that's kind of like why, even though I like this, and I do think I like this for a lot of reasons, is also nostalgia. Like this is still a theme park show. I just think it's a good theme park show. But the things that like I've seen, I had opened up. And we don't need to get to them. I don't think it's relevant really. But I had opened up out of curiosity because the Broadway World forums are still up and have never like lost their archives. I opened up like some initial reactions to this show being announced and like the previews and people going to Disney World and singing, giving their reaction. But there are still times like recent things where it's like, will Disney ever bring Nemo to Broadway? Because they gutted the show at Disney and they could add like they put it on Broadway, and then I mean like gutted now by taking it down from 40 minutes to 25. I don't mean like gutting like what I'm saying now. It's like the show is gutted, and I watch this and it's like this show would need so much work to be an actual show, because not only does it like say stuff happened off stage, which is annoying, whatever, but like the actual emotional heart and danger of this story is not the physical danger they get into. It is the idea that Marlin is not going to ever learn to be a better father. And that is never really in doubt here, because Nemo immediately is like, I don't think my dad is going to save me, but it's not like... The emotional... The changes that happen are not earned within this narrative. Which is fine, because no one is going to watch Finding Nemo the musical at Disney World without having seen Finding Nemo before. Like, it is literally like... I cannot imagine there ever being someone who went... I'm sure there are a couple people who are like, maybe like a grandpa who's like, yeah, I'll go in with you, sport, whatever, who did that, but like, this does not exist without the background knowledge of Nemo. And ergo, as a piece of art on its own, it inherently loses the reason why Nemo is such an evocative film, even now, when we revisited it just a couple months ago, and it's like, oh, I still find new places to cry at this. It has that in it, and this does not. Maybe that's not what you were going for, but...
No, I mean, I think that's a compelling response. That's not exactly what I meant, but I think that's an important thing to say, too.
I might have said this before. I've talked about speech and debate before on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So, back when I was in speech and debate, and if I've told this before, you can cut me off and then cut it out. But my junior year, not my senior year where it would like traumatize me that I didn't make it to nationals, but my junior year, I didn't make it to nationals along with my buddy Justin, and we were like, we wanted to have fun, even though it was our next year was our senior year, but it was also like we don't really want. All right, the thing is like Justin had already decided who his duo partner was going to be next year, and it was going to be a girl because the guy duos didn't do well.
Can I ask you, is this the story about stripper Nemo?
No, it isn't. I understand the assumption that it would be about stripper.
They've basically started the same way.
No, they start the same way, but just one of them's... Stripper Nemo is senior year, the story is junior year. Justin qualified my senior year. So Justin's not... Justin is the guy who's in the M&M story. The guy who was like, they should make an M&M movie. That's who Justin is. But, so Justin and actually, this is around the time of the M&M story, because the M&M's, this is the same year as that, and I assume after we saw Divergent was when we started really working on this, because it was the end of the year, and Divergent came out in March. Anyway, Justin had already decided who his partner's gonna be next year, and I hadn't decided yet, but neither of us wanted to do, like, his partner had qualified, I think, if I remember right. So it was like, well, I can't really do this thing with the partner now, so Danny, let's just try to adapt The Emperor's New Groove into a 10-minute speech piece where we're both playing characters. And I was obviously Yzma, and he was Kronk. That was the whole thing. He wanted to be Kronk. And the thing is, we realized, even though like the entire class laughed, our teacher was like, I literally have no idea what happened in that. Because if you take that movie and cut it down to 10 minutes and try to include the entire plot in it, like, and you're not, unlike this where you can just throw in a line where it's like, wow, I can't believe that escape attempt failed, and the audience knows what escape attempt you're talking about. It's just complete gibberish, right? It's like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't know how you're turning into, like, what this plot is. And the emotional beats don't work at all because you're rushing through it all. And especially when, in that case, it's like, when you're adapting The Emperor's New Groove into a 10-minute version where you want it to be as funny as possible, you're probably going to spend more time with Yzma and Kronk than with the actual story, because that's where all the good jokes are. That's all I was saying, is like, that's what came to my mind. Because we're talking about
because Nemo is like, yeah, because Nemo is referential more than it like makes good narrative sense.
Yeah. If my teacher had saw Finding Nemo the musical, having somehow never seen the original thing, I think it would make sense, but it'd be like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get why this was a phenomenon. Whereas I think you watch Beauty and the Beast, and I use Beauty and the Beast as an example because I think The Lion King is pretty much a completely separate thing from the movie, other than the music. I think the experience is completely different, which is why it's the best one of these, at least the ones I've seen. But I think you see either Mary Poppins or Beauty and the Beast, those are well done shows, I think, for the most part. Whenever I've seen, as long as it's a well done production, you're like, if it's a bad production, it's going to be bad. But I think the books of them are good. I think you watch Beauty and the Beast, a stage show, you're going to be like, okay, yeah. And you somehow never seen the movie, you'll be like, okay, I get it, you know? Or you watch Mary Poppins, you'll be like, okay, I get it. But I think you watch Finding Nemo the musical, you're going to be like, what? Like, how is this a big deal? Like, why was this a phenomenon when it was a movie? And I think it's the same thing with The Emperor's New Groove if you cut it down to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. What are we going to give Finding Nemo the musical? Yeah, what are we going to give it?
You know, I wanted to give it my plate that had my lunch on it that I'm staring at, but there's all the water is fake, so they couldn't clean it for me. I'm gonna give it some of my open thing of napkins that I have on the table in front of me.
So, Amusement Today has this thing called the Golden Ticket Awards, where it gives awards to various theme parks for things. I know this because I know one of my local parks always won most clean.
Hell yeah.
The Golden Ticket Award would mean I'm giving this a Special Achievement Golden Ticket Award for Best Music and Lyrics for a show, just so that way the Lopez's can become the first ever GIGOTs? Well, how would you say this? Golden Ticket.
Getiggets?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Or I guess we
Sounds
could
like
put an A in there because it's from Amusement. We could put an ad in there because it's from Amusement Today. So, EGOT? Ad EGOT? I don't know. It would be an ad EGOT because they would have got this first because this came out before anything else. Well, I guess the Tony for Avenue Q was first, but you know what I mean. But I'll give it a Special Achievement Award from them so that way they can get a better title than... because Robert Lopez needs another title other than being the only double EGOT winner.
Yeah.
I think
All right.
It's a good award.
I just wanted to give it some used tissues.
Well, I liked it more than you, so I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean that's valid. I think I like the award that you gave it. What do we do next time?
Great question. We are gonna go on a detour. I will say this right now to the listeners: be very excited. We are about to enter it's gonna be hard for us, but we're about to enter a I'm just double checking. It is a 5-week streak of us covering a movie every week. A full movie.
Isn't that what we always do?
No, because we do shorts. Right now we do musical.
Oh, yeah.
We don't usually do so many movies in a row. Next one is our first one, and it's one of 2 detours we got lined up. I have a very bad habit on this podcast of forgetting to mention the co-directors with these movies. I think I do it way too much, and it's bad because next week we have a detour because Ash Brannon is a filmmaker who, oh my gosh, I just looked at his wiki and I saw that he is a major creative force on Arcane, and I'm telling you right now, I do not want to do a detour on Arcane. I have no interest. Nope, no, thank you.
Why
too
not?
long.
Have you not seen Arcane?
No, I haven't seen Arcane.
Or is it just long?
It's long. I don't really want to do TV show detours, you know? That seems like a lot of...
Yeah.
But he co-directed Toy Story 2. And he has directed 2 other films for other studios. And first of which is 2007's Surf's Up. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do. I don't want to do the Cars music for it.
Yeah. And my brother will be the guest.
Whoa, I've never talked to Mark Spurber before. I hope we'll see how the power dynamic changes. It always changes some.
It probably won't change very much. Penguins. Looking for the Ocean is produced by Mark Young and Danny Vincent. Our original artwork was done by Sarah Knopf, and each episode is edited by me.
If you'd like to be notified about new episodes, you can find us on Facebook at Looking for the Ocean: A Pixar Journey, on Twitter at Pixar Journey, on Instagram at Looking for the Ocean Pod, and on our website, lookingfortheoceanpixar.podbean.com.
If you want to know what I'm up to or find me on social media, you can head over to markyoungperformer.com.
And if you'd like to see all my takes on all the movies, you can find me on Letterboxd at Blankmans. If you'd like to hear me on another podcast, I also have The Snub Club, a podcast about film history. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.